Welcome to Amateur Redneck Workshop. I'm Harold, and I'm interrupting work on the plasma table to make me a scissor lift. I need to lift something about a foot. It's going to be a heavy appliance, and so I've just got a few days to get the job done before the appliance gets delivered. So there you go. I'm looking around here to see what I've got to make it from, and I think I've found enough materials to go ahead and get started on the little booger. I think I'll probably go down to Harbor Freight and get one of those little four-wheel dollies that they got for about 10 bucks. You get nice cheap wheels that way, and they're supposed to hold 1,000 pounds, so this appliance is sure not any 1,000 pounds. I think we'll do good with it. Let's get on with the job. This guy is going to be the base for my scissor lift. I've taken the carpet off of it so I can see how thick everything is, and I found a nice piece of plywood there left over from making my reloading table, which means it's been laying around here in the garage for 4, 5, or 6 years. Somewhere in there. So I guess I'll get on with splitting that particular piece of wood down the middle so that I'll have a piece for each side there to level that thing out. Every project starts on a saw of some kind. Used to start on a bandsaw, but this stuff right there, I cut that on the bandsaw. But now, don't tell anybody, but we're going to use that chop saw just like a miter saw, except we're not going to do a miter. We're just going to cut some 2x4s. So we'll sort of frame it out like that. This will probably lift way higher than I need. Probably start out way higher than I need. Not sure about that, but there. And when I say we about doing something here, I mean you and me. You're an accessory after the fact because you're watching. Because this thing's got that little gap between the ends where it's lower than the rest of it, I had to cut a piece of plywood to go in each side to make it level and flat. So now I've got that little frame there to screw down, and then we'll make the top, and once we've got the top made, then we'll make the stuff to lift, rather the stuff to lift it with. You'd have to be a redneck to run a saw that close to a screw. Almost certain. Alright, so I've got a little frame built to hold on to the wheels, and a little frame built to hold on to the top, and I've cut 1 inch of width off of them so it won't be so darn tall. I cut 1 inch off of both sides. Instead of being 2x4s, these are kind of like 2x3s, actually 2x2.5s, and so are those down there. Now then, I've got to set the top on top of that and screw it down, and then we'll start making the little scissor arms that are going to lift everything up. So I guess we're probably halfway done here, or almost. We'll see. So the frame is screwed onto the top, and the frame is screwed onto the bottom. Now I need the pieces that are going to be the scissor part of it. I'm going to have to drill holes in the ends of them and hinge them together and things like that. Those are the little scissor pieces yet to be drilled and assembled. And before I get back on the plasma table, there's that job there to be done too, an outdoor light. The old one, I guess, is about 8 or 9 years old, something like that, and it's bit the dust. Those little corner clamps are certainly very useful tools. I had those suckers the most of my life before I ever got any use out of them. And no kidding, they went probably 35, 40 years before I ever used them for much of anything. But I've used them lately. Alright, this is a wood mangler fixture here. I've got this guy sticking up so I can put him in the hole here, drop the hole over it, and make this thing into a nice round, uniform round end. And I'll make something the equivalent of that for use with metal later on. But right now this guy's for the wood mangling part. Now I bet there was one or two of you guys that thought I was going to grind down the corners, but I'm not. I did a little preliminary cutting with a horror freight bandsaw. Now I did just as good freehanding the stuff as I did with a little axle. I should have, likely it's not, I should have made a bigger arc, but that's okay. I imagine it'll work out just fine anyway. There's further insurance against this thing binding. I've shimmed it there before I drill the holes, so this will make the little axle stand off from everything far enough that it's not going to bind up. I think everything will work out right like that. Got him drilled out to accept a screw like this right here. Should fit him quite well. We'll put the nut in the middle of it, and we may have to do a little shaping around to make the nut fit, and maybe another piece to sandwich on there to hold it, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to put the nut on that guy right there. Have you guys noticed that here lately the YouTube ads are a lot longer? I mean, like ads like 1.5 to 5 minutes or something. And that's not all the ads. They'll have another one just as soon as that one's over. You know, they're like 2 ads to start the video. And then after you got the video started, then there's going to be, you know, there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 more ads inside the video. Here I am, I can barely stand to watch a 15-second ad, which is normally, if it's not a 15-second, I just turn it off, to be honest with you. You know, I click the next button. I don't know why I never get just exactly dead on. I calculate it in my head and it should fit, but it doesn't. I got it a little too much. I guess because my pencil's fat. I was just thinking, you know, you got this son that's not been living up to his potential. Maybe it's a daughter or a nephew, you know, and maybe they're out on parole, or maybe they just got out of jail or something, and you need a job for them to do something that, you know, they can make a career out of. Maybe they're at live lots, you know, and steal a little here and there and stuff. Well, I've got the perfect job. Politician. No kidding. You don't have to have any kind of qualifications to be a politician. All you got to do is get elected. Once you're in, they expect you to steal and lie. So, perfect job for that sort of kid. Nobody's hopeless. Everybody, there's a place for everybody. And they don't have to be smart. The people making the rules make rules about things they have no idea about, things they've never seen. They just make rules that they think sound reasonable. I'm surprised somebody hadn't tried to move wintertime to the middle of July so it'd be cool. Who knows? Well, I got a piece of 1/2-inch drill rod, 1/2-inch all thread that I'm going to put in here, so I guess it'd be good to have a 1/2-inch hole. Really, that may not have been the best idea in the whole world. Every time it hit one of these really hard layers in here, it would jerk the thing. And it's too late now. The job's done. Now, you know they make little nuts that are already threaded. They're round on the outside and they got teeth that latch down in there. I don't have any of those. I was just telling you they got them. I like to use end mills to make a flat bottom hole, but they won't fit. One to fit this hole won't fit the drill chuck. Too bad for me. I think that I can get that into a hole there. But it's going to take a little bit of doing, so I'm going to let you guys take a nap while I work out how to get the hole the right size. So that little 1/8 end mill, I went around and I cut the corners off of the spots that I had marked as a hex for the bolt, and I'm going to take it over to the vise and see if I can't just squeeze it in there. If I do, well, it'll be grand, and if I don't, well, that's too bad. Just look at that, it's mostly in, and it's straight, and it'll hold on tight there. I'll put a little something over the end here to cap it down, you know, like a little piece of metal, screw it down over it. But I think that's pretty darn good. It's all going to work out. Alright, there's the magic part of it. Oh, sorry about that. I keep hitting you guys. That'll work. All I got to do now is make a little metal cap so it doesn't push out the wrong side. Back to sleep. So I've got this piece of scrap, and it's already got holes in the corners. So, and that is really close to being the center. It's only off about a 1/16, which I don't think anybody will notice unless I tell you. There was some blue chips come out of that sucker. It's running way too fast, that big drill bit. But that went right to a 1/2 inch. Now I got to find a 5/8, and we're in business. Those stupid little screws. I think really there must be sheetrock screws or something, but they twist off really easy. I had a pre-drilled hole there I was going to use, and I broke off the one in there. Had to come over and drill another hole. But it's alright, it's still going to hold. Now this thing's not finished. I got to take that threaded rod and put it in the lathe and turn down one end of it to 3/8 so I can use my little DeWalt electric drill for for power, you know. But we'll try it out with a box end wrench, a couple of nuts on there, and see what we get. The nuts are turning here. Something's holding me up. Let's lift them. I may have to loosen the joints a little bit. It's giving me a lot of resistance. Let's turn it over and take a look underneath to see how it's moving. Like I said, I may have to loosen some of those joints where I've got bolts in there. But you can see there's my nut that I have captured in there, and it's behind that piece of metal and doing a good job of lifting up this direction. On the other side of it, I've got a piece of metal screwed to the wood so that the end of that screw can push against it and not drill a hole. So, unfortunately, like I said, I haven't yet turned down the end of that threaded rod. It's still 1/2 inch. I got to turn it down to 3/8, but it's hot out here, and it seems to be getting hotter. And I'm sweating like a lady of the evening in Sunday school. So, I'm gonna knock it off till tomorrow. After all, we're very close to finished anyway. Okay, so I can sit on it and crank myself up. In fact, I was doing that and I thought I had the stupid camera on, and it wasn't. But nevertheless, let me lean it back a little bit now that we've got so much done there. Yeah. And I worked up all this extra sweat reaching over the side here, cranking myself up. I think maybe maybe I made it too big, and it's definitely lifting way up higher than I had expected it to. But as you can see, here I am sitting on it, and the appliance I'm going to lift with it is not supposed to be as heavy as me, but it's just big and bulky, and I need something to lift it while I hold it up straight. So there you are. Look at that. Run that thing over the end of my wrist there. Alright. Tomorrow I'll finish it up. Take a long nap. Well, obviously this was not strong enough to handle the nut. You can see the bolts didn't make it too good either. It'll bent up. So I'm going to replace this with a piece of metal. Then we'll see how well we do. I've drilled and threaded one end of this thing, and I'm going to power tap this end. It's just, you guys know I would, because that's what I do. So here we go. It's a 50% thread, so it's a lot easier to power tap than if it were 75% thread. A lot easier to fit cheap bolts that way too. Alright, this is the hole in the middle of the thing for the threaded rod to go through. I'm going to see if I can power tap it just for the heck of it. This thing doesn't reverse, so once I go in, however far it goes, that's where it'll stay until I get a wrench and move it. Didn't go very far, did it? Alright, so we'll get a wrench and finish her up there. You know, a tap wrench. Okay, so there's a 1/2-13 hole in the middle, 5/16 on each end. We'll see if this can hold up to the strain, but I've got one more part I'm going to make before we try it out. Considering everyone feels better working in a clean space, I cleaned up the floor, and I think that thing's finished. Putting the metal piece in there instead of the 2x4, it's strong enough now to handle the excessive amount of force that's on it when it's down low. And that's about as low as it's going to get, and me be able to start it back upwards with that DeWalt drill there. I don't know why that big problem exists, but that's the current problem. So at least I can raise this up high enough to get the appliance out of the wall and set it down, and I can wobble it off there onto the floor and everything will be okay. So that's done. Delivery has been postponed, so I was out here working myself to death for nothing. Let's see what Bubba's doing. Well, it seems that Bubba's got a cousin named Billy. And Billy Joe, actually, and Billy Joe's got a brother named Bubba, and his brother ain't known for being real sensitive or anything, you know. So anyway, Billy Joe wanted to go off to Europe, you know, and do a little looking around, and he couldn't find nobody to keep his dog except Bubba, and he really hated to do that, but you know, he decided, well, there wasn't no other choice to it, so he told Bubba, he says, I'm going to call you from time to time and ask you about how the dog's getting on. He says, you better take good care of him. So Bubba says, all right. So in a few days, well, Billy Joe calls up, says, well, Bubba, he says, just how's my dog doing? Bubba says, oh, your dog's dead. Billy Joe says, oh, Bubba, he says, he says, you know how much I like that dog, how I love that dog, and all that. He says, how could you be so insensitive as to just pop out with it that he's dead? He says, he said, you could have done a lot of things. Says you could have let me into it easy, like telling me, well, the dog's on the roof and we can't get him down, but we're working on it. And when I called back tomorrow to check on the dog, you say, well, the dog fell off the roof and we took him to the vet. And then maybe the next day you say, well, your dog died, and that give me time to start expecting something. He says, Bubba, you got to learn to be more sensitive. Bubba says, all right. He says, Billy Joe, I'll sure give it a try. So after a few days, Billy Joe's feeling a little bit better, and he called back home and he said, well, Bubba, he says, how's everything going? Bubba says, it's going all right. He says, well, he says, how's Mama? Bubba said, well, he says, she's up on the roof. Well, that's all, folks. Y'all try to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Leave a comment if you got something to say. And above all, remember, keep on keeping on. Bye now.